I just remember walking out onto the course in front of Buckingham Palace, it's 1k up and down, or 2k up and down the Mall, to a noise that I've never experienced before outside of a stadium. Like, there were 3 or 4 people deep surrounding the entire course. The people would be leaning over the barriers, screaming in your face as you went down, and it was just the adrenaline. I'm somebody who can really focus, but the adrenaline just took over. And my head was just, I've got to win. Everybody wants me to win, is willing me round to win. And so the race plan, the strategy, taking on fluids, it was a hot day, like it was a mega fast pace. It just all got away from me. And what happened, and the chief judge stepped out in front of me, showed me the red paddle and disqualified me. But what was agonising was, because all the red cards came in one lap, I had no idea. And people said to me after, "Oh, you must have known you had 2 cards, 3 cards, because on the TV we knew." And I said, "Yeah, but it was 8 minutes since I last saw the board, which is by the side of the start-finish line, saying my name and how many cards you have." So in that lap, I'd gone from absolutely fine to being disqualified, and I had no idea about it. So it was absolutely heartbreaking, and it was obviously primetime telly, because the BBC had hyped massive. They weren't just putting this on the red button. This was live Sunday afternoon telly, 30,000 people out watching. This was all about me as well. And that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be all about me. This is what I'd worked for. It's 7 years on since the commies, and everybody in the team knew who I was and knew race walking exists. And
you'd rebranded it basically.
And I wanted to medal. All week the media just banged on about how bad as a team we were doing. Mo was the only person who got a medal, and until the relays, we'd had nothing. So it was all just. I remember I was locking myself in my room before the race in the days prior, not wanting to go outside. Had my phone on airplane mode. Just stressing. I would text my coach, "Actually, I'm not coming with you. I'm going to go out training on my own now," and just doing such bizarre things, which isn't me. I never experienced pressure like it. And I think I built my own pressure as well, because people just want to see you do well at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Whereas I saw that as, I can't let everybody down. Yeah. And at this point, it was going to be Mo Farah, and if I medal Tom Bosworth, the only medalist. That's huge. What an opportunity. But maybe I got my name made the other way.
So the aftermath of 2017, with you being disqualified, what was that like afterwards?
It wasn't, the aftermath wasn't as bad as kind of what's been written in the press recently. It took me a long time to realise how much London meant to me, and kind of what I'm doing athletics for and so on. Like, I rocked up the next day, did the Birmingham Diamond League, so on, back in that environment of with all the other athletes and so on, and was fine. But then
were you fine though?
Yeah, I was. Well, because I was still focused on, I've got one more race to do, and then end of the season can switch off. Okay. That's when you switched off, that's when you realised how crap
everything
is. And everything you had sacrificed and everything you had done and put your family and everybody through, and it all gone so terribly wrong. And my behaviour after that was what caused the next pretty much 2 years, end of 2017 to pretty much end of last year, of hell for me and Harry. I started drinking. I wouldn't come home. I didn't care. I didn't care about Harry. I didn't care about my family. I pushed my family members away, my sister away, and by the end of Commonwealths, they kept me on the straight and narrow for a while, because I was like, right, straight back at it, got to go medal for commies, and got through that season, but spent 2 months of that away in Australia, on to China, and didn't get home till mid-May. home for a few weeks. We got a dog. Everything seemed fine. Went off to Switzerland to prepare for Berlin. Came home from Berlin after a mediocre championships because I was just miserable all summer. And came home and tried to kill myself, basically.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in such a short space of time. And even when you think back now to that moment, was there anything in particular that, you know, may have led to, you know, the suicide attempt? So were there any triggers? Was there any signs in particular? Or was it just, you know, a case of the drinking, the going out and, you know, not contacting anyone, ignoring everyone, just kind of doing things off your own back?
Yeah, it was denial that there was anything really wrong.
And was it centered around your performance at London 2012? Because even when I'm listening to you now, you're talking about the whole hype of it, you know, off the back of Rio 2016, and then going in as not just, you know, one of, you know, the world's best, but a potential medalist. Like, that's huge, especially when it's your home championships, and then you didn't even finish. You got disqualified. So, you know, there's going to be certain signs and triggers that could potentially lead to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think just managing the build up to that championships could have changed everything afterwards. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could have, both me and I feel like my team could have seen just how big a deal this was going to be before it happened. It literally wasn't until the week of London that I really realised how big a home championships is, because in the UK we just love sport.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't around for London 2012 in terms of competing, so this was my first taste of it. And it was, again, if I was going in where I was going into Rio or Beijing or Zurich or anywhere like that, it would have been so different. But this was the first time we were going into a champs as somebody who could be seen as a medal hope, and so this was a learning curve for my coach, for me, for all the team. And so I definitely feel like if we'd managed that better, the downfall afterwards wouldn't have been so steep and so quick, and so I wouldn't have probably acted the way I did afterwards, which then started this never-ending cycle of just being so low constantly, not wanting to train, not wanting to race, not wanting to go home to Harry, not wanting to... I just was a different person. And I look back now, even just 4 or 5 months ago, of how miserable I'd be all the time. Even going into Doha, I was still miserable all the time. I wasn't suicidal or anything like that, but I was just miserable as sin. And I hated what I was doing. And I really thought, you know, Tokyo year is going to be... It's done. I don't want any more to do with it. But everybody around me has come together amazingly. My family never gave up on me, and Harry somehow never gave up on me, even though he should have. Like, he doesn't deserve to have been put through what he's gone through for 9 years of being the partner of an athlete, let alone the crap of the last couple of years. And so 2019 I was just in constant pain because of a back injury, and I could barely train once a day, let alone twice a day. And so all of 29's races until Doha they were a nightmare. Like, I was getting there feeling awful, starting off these 20k races feeling atrocious and doing badly for where I expected to be. And I just was I was moaning to Harry. I didn't want to go away training. I couldn't find a way of feeling fit, and so nothing in life felt like it could ever work out unless I just binned it all. But then it was that whole argument in your head, you've worked this hard, maybe it'll get better for Tokyo, and so on and so on. And by the summer last year, I had a lot of support with the mental health. I'd got myself out of the lowest hole, but athletics then wasn't easy, and I just didn't want to be anywhere. And so by the summer last year, I had our trial race, and I had a nightmare of a race, and I was in agony in the second half, and I just threw my shoes off afterwards, and I said to my coach, we're not doing Doha. I'm done with all of this until I'm happy and it doesn't hurt anymore. And so we stopped, and that's where, and it took, I don't know why it took me so long to really just stop and take a step back rather than try and push through injuries, push through being miserable. And I just stayed at home with Harry, working on the strength and conditioning side of things, working on getting this back fixed, horrible injections and all sorts in my spine and all sorts. It was just awful. And I thought, I don't want to go to Doha, I don't want to do this. But we set up a plan where, and we have done for this year as well, if it goes horrifically wrong, it's not the end of the world. We know what's way more important is Harry, the dog, my family, going and representing my country again and again and again. And I'm honoured to have had the career I have so far, and just appreciate that and how important that is. And I think that's why Doha went pretty much as well, finishing 7th off. I would say 2.5 weeks training I was happy with, 8 weeks training back from when we kind of needed to do some training whilst we were trying to fix the back problem. And so it was 2 years of getting over injuries, getting over my own head. And then after Doha, I was finally able to figure out where my own head was to be happy again. And thankfully, training's going really well. I'm the happiest I've ever been. And we have the right sort of support that everybody should have anyway, in family, friends, and medical at the from British Athletics and UK Sport. So it shouldn't have taken what it did, and it shouldn't have lasted as long as it did. But I don't blame anybody or myself for that.
You know, listening to you then, and, you know, talking about mental health, it is massive in sport, especially in elite sports. You know, you've been open about your suicide attempt. And why is it that you think that maybe athletes don't speak up about it, or maybe that it's not taken serious enough?
I think with sport, it's such a difficult one because it's almost like you should be enjoying every step.
So basically you should be grateful?
Yeah, not necessarily that you should be grateful, but it's a choice to be an athlete. Yeah. You could just stop. You could just go and get a 9-to-5 job like everybody else who works just as hard. But we are fortunate enough to be in a position where we do have to work just as hard, or even that little bit harder, for very little or no guaranteed reward. And then because it's such a big deal every few years at Olympics or World Championships, people get on board with that, whether that's, you know, you get funding from the National Lottery or sponsors, or you know, your team needs so many medals to maintain the money that they get, which suddenly means that you can do it full time. And so if that's your full-time job, to make sure that you deliver medals for somebody else, that's where it now, the conversation needs to be had of, actually, these aren't machines working for us, generating enough cars out of the factory every year. These are human beings trying to generate medals on one day every 4 years.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what you build to. And so if one person doesn't do that, you can't just chuck them out at the end of it, or they will have their own demons and they will chuck themselves out after those 4 years. And that is just something, it's so hard, I think, for many people now to get their head around, but it's so blatantly obvious when you stop and think about it. When if you work for something for 4 years, 8 years, and that one day and it goes wrong, first of all, there needs to be some sort of, you know, leniency and understanding and support from the governing bodies and sponsors and so on. And second of all, people need to remember, you are in the spotlight that like nobody else is. If you give a bad presentation in your job, you're going to maybe have some regrets and wish you hadn't done that. But so many million people aren't watching at home, and that presentation is not going to then be broadcast over social media and so on. Your failures are kept to you.
Thank you for listening to a preview of today's show. To hear the full episode, visit www.thehiddengreatness.com.